right, ladies and gentlemen, we have returned for the complete Innistrad set review of the Multicolor, the Artifact, the land cards, and any other random cards that we haven't talked about, like the dual lands and stuff is in there too. So I am Evan Irwin,
Brad Nelson.
all day, and we have to start with that sophisticated heat in Arlen Cord. Arlen Cord, you haven't seen my Magic show, you don't get that. It's a green and it's a green, red, and 2 generic mana for a 3 loyalty, obviously mythic planeswalker with 2 abilities on the front side. +1 until end of turn. Up to 1 target creature gets +2/+2 and gains vigilance and haste. And for 0:, you put a 2/2 green wolf creature token onto the battlefield, and then you transform her into Arlen, Miss Cord if you're nasty. Arlen, Embraced by the Moon. It has 3 abilities. +1: creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain trample until end of turn. -1, she lightning bolts a creature or player, deals 3 damage to a creature or player, and then you transform her back. Or -6, you get an emblem with, quote, creatures you control have haste and tap, : this creature deals damage equal to its power to target creature or player. Oh my god, this card is amazing. So let's go real quickly. If you use one of the front abilities, like the one that makes a wolf and flips her over, you can't use that ability. You can't use any more of her abilities twice. You've only used it once. You get your one time. But she's been pushed in all the right ways. And Huntmaster of the Fells was a card, and this card is like crazy similar and better.
I don't know if it's better.
Really?
Yeah, because Huntmaster could be dealt with by like creature removal that's non-direct damage.
Sure.
But it couldn't be attacked.
Fair enough.
And where Arlen can be attacked, and the card was very good initially in our testing, but it's been we probably just need to find the true home. It was just a good card while we were like goofing off and trying a bunch of stuff, but lately it's not been impressive. Like I went from seeing it have a $40 initial price tag, I'm like, yeah, not buying that. And then like a couple days later, like thinking about just dropping the 160 on it. Mm-hmm. And then I'm glad I didn't. I mean, I think the card's gonna rest a little bit lower than that because like planeswalkers are always gigantic right away.
Right. I mean, they're always like pumped up, hyped, or whatever.
Yeah, but the more I play with the card, the more it's just a little middling. But it does do some cool things when it lives. And so that's really cool because like you can make a wolf, bolt something, and then around the time that it flips back over and you can activate the 3rd time is right around the time you're playing something like in a Dragonlord or Tarka or something big that you want to give haste.
Yeah, which is really nice.
So it times really well. And the card is really well designed, but at the same time it is a weaker planeswalker, and 4-mana planeswalkers have just not been that effective so far in testing. So I think the card is going to be good, not great, and I just don't know the home for it yet.
Wow. Dude, look, man, this is a mature lady planeswalker. You know what I'm talking about? This girl,
Nope.
Arlen is classy, all right? Don't you say anything about the woman. She's not even the girl. She's the woman. It is cool. It is super cool that, like, it isn't like a young teenager type girl. Like, no, this is like a mature female that, you know, is rocking it and is super powerful, is an elder, and is still awesome.
Yeah, I mean, lady in the streets, beast in the streaks of moonlight.
Jesus, dude, you reached on that one. You went so deep.
It reached for the full moon.
Oh my god. All right, so that's dude, they're still going off about the armpit thing, dude. That's what's happening. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I will say that bringing up Jason's feet might be the funniest thing I've ever said on a Versus video.
On a Versus video?
Or on a
oh, I see how it is.
It is midnight, man.
Oh, now it's midnight. All right, I see how it is, Brad. Yeah, man. I thought you cared about me. Anyway,
I'm here, aren't I?
that was an amazing follow-up. Don't get me wrong. And I didn't mean it to come out as weird as it did, but here we are.
So weird.
You know what? It was just unique. All right, I'm not even going to try to explain it.
I'm just unique, everyone.
Shut up, Brad.
You just don't understand.
You just don't understand me. Arlen Cord, I think, is terrific. It's one of those things where it's like, I don't know if it's going to be defining standard, but I know it's going to be good enough that it's probably going to be a player in some fashion.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly where or how, but Huntmaster of the Fells was a card that everyone kind of dismissed back in the day. You remember? Like before the Pro Tour,
oh yeah,
everyone was like, I don't even know if this card's any good. And then like Team CFB, I think it was, like literally like every person was playing a play set and all of a sudden it blew up overnight.
Yeah, I was also on that team, and that deck sucked.
Oh. Wait, didn't
It
it put
was
people in the top 8 and stuff?
first and second place.
Then what are you talking about?
Well, what happened was Team Star City Games actually had the best deck in the room that just so happened to get completely demolished by our deck. So the players that got out of the second draft still in contention for top 8 just got to shred through all of these Lingering Soul drogs, or like these, they were Delver Lingering Souls decks, so they're a little slower,
Sure.
and just got to shred through them.
Nice. Well, there you go. Arlen Cord, I don't know, man. I think they did, like, there's a reason I think they gave her to LSV to preview. Like, they don't give LSV not good constructed cards to preview.
No, they love them some LSV. They got to scratch that back, so they hope that when he doesn't make top 8 of Pro Tours, that he comes and does commentary.
Right. Well, and he finally did make top 8 the last one, which is amazing.
So, which is amazing.
No, it's great. I don't mean it like, oh my God, he's never going to make it. Obviously, LSV is amazing, like amazing Magic player. I just like, it's a terrific circumstance because isn't it great that LSV's making top 8?
Yeah, it was really fun to watch. I mean, it wasn't a fun format to watch, but it was fun to see him in a top 8.
Sure. Harvest Hand is next. It's a 3 generic mana 2/2. It's an uncommon scarecrow that when it dies, you return it to the battlefield transformed under your control. You return it transformed as an equipment called the Scrounged Scythe, or Scythe. Is that Scythe? I think it's Scythe. I think it's Scythe. Anyway, this is the part where I go like, I don't know words. Anyway, the Scrounged equipment is gives the equipped creature +1/+1, and as long as that creature is a human, it has menace. So it equips for 2 mana, and so it's basically like a value uncommon. That's great.
Yeah, and yeah, it seems fine if it ever trades. That's the plus side because then it becomes an equipment that already dealt with a card. I do want to point out, since we hit our first artifact,
Sure.
One of the interesting things I've seen in the set is all the artifacts seem pretty lackluster, and it wasn't until Tom Ross brought it up to me that he thinks that the reason that a lot of these cards were powered down is because you didn't want too many good artifacts because of Delirium. Because you play them at a cost, like they come at a cost in your deck. But if you ever mail them over or discard them, they help fuel your Delirium, which artifact is one of the more crucial or difficult cards to get in a graveyard.
Sure.
So that's why a lot of these cards seem weak, and they are technically weaker than most other artifacts. And I think that's really cool. That's a really good, spot on decision by development from Wizards.
Well, I mean, it's also one of those things that's very, like, subtle. Unless you're looking for it or paying attention to it, you wouldn't really know. It's like, well, all the artifacts are kind of powered down. So why is that? Because it helps the main mechanic maybe a little too much.
Yeah, and it is crazy eerie how often that happens when I'm around Tom. Like, I'm never looking for it, but he sees it, and then I get to say it and sound really smart.
Yeah, you do. Scrounge Scythe and Harvest Hand, ultimately, like, it's a good uncommon creature. I think I would be happy to play it in almost any deck.
Well, at least I hope I have humans.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you're playing humans, like, you 100% want this type of card. I can imagine. I don't know why you wouldn't, really. But, otherwise, it's still a decent piece of equipment. But I think obviously, in humans, you really want it in that deck.
Yeah.
Neglected Heirloom is next. It's a 1-mana uncommon artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1. When the equipped creature transforms, however, you transform this too. And the Neglected Heirloom becomes the Ashmouth Blade. Yes.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, 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 dun. It's now gives equipped creature +3/+3 and first strike. Yeah.
For only 3 mana, this card's disgusting once you flip it.
Yeah, I mean, well, and if the equipped creature transforms, it transforms, which means it stays on the creature, I think.
Yes, it does, because they do not transform cards do not change any zone or anything. They just turn over.
Right. So the equipped creature's getting amazing. So if you got a werewolf going on there, this thing is nuts.
Well, I mean, the best is the vampire. I can never remember Heir of the Falcon Wrath or whatever, the one that you discard and turn into a 3/2 flyer. Like, if you play this on turn 1, play it on turn 2, equip, you still have 2 mana up, and discarding a card means you're attacking for 6 in the air on turn 3.
That's
You have
insane.
a 6/5. A 6/5! Attacking on turn 3.
Dude. Dude, a 6/5, that's nuts.
Yeah, on turn 5, Avacyn can only block it. It doesn't even trade, and that's like three. Like you're already dead.
Wow.
It's very powerful.
Gotcha. And the blade does not transform back. That's another important point.
Yeah, no, yeah, it stays. It's you get the full value. It's the evolved version of the front side, which is
Right.
really cool.
Well, I mean, basically what you have, I think, is like there's the human equipment that we just saw that gives a human's menace, and then there's the werewolf equipment that is absolutely ridiculous.
Hmm.
Or the vampire equipment, obviously, as you mentioned.
Yep.
Thraben Gargoyle is next. It's a 1 mana 2/2 defender. However, for 6 mana, 6 generic mana, you can transform it into the Stonewing Antagonizer. Wow, really? Really? Is that enough syllables for you, Wizards? You happy with that one? Stonewing Antagonizer is a gargoyle horror that is now a 4/2 flyer. So is it worth it to play this little 1 mana guy because later on he's actually going to do something?
I think so because it also is just a 2/2 on the ground that if the opponent blocks, it helps Delirium and
Woo,
I mean
Fuels Delirium.
it's a 2/2 for one, which a lot of creatures in the early game are gonna like not want to attack into for like it's gonna trade up for a while in a game, and later on like it's just 6 mana investment to make a 4/2 flyer, and that's a decent rate.
I mean, it's a decent rate and all, but you're also kind of paying 7 for a 4/2 flyer at that point.
Yeah, but it's a 1 drop for a 2/2. Like you're not just paying 7 mana on turn 7 to have a 4/2 flyer.
Sure.
You get this creature that is in play for the duration of the game. It's also something that you can like throw for a while when you don't need it because you're not going to use it for a while, and make sure that your opponent doesn't get like a werewolf clause, or if they choose to not play a spell that turn, it allows you to double spell, which is really vital for a lot of players that didn't play in Innistrad. Having effects and cheap cards in your deck that you either play when it's relevant or just hold for the sake of reflipping werewolves over is pretty vital to a strategy. Like if you just dump your hand and your opponent just plays, what was that? It's right here for me, so I get to kind of cheat. Solitary Hunter that flips into the 5/6/1 of the pact.
Right.
You all of a sudden are like, why didn't I hold that card? I'm so stupid that I didn't even need it yet.
Right.
And that might just change the dynamic of the entire game moving forward.
Absolutely. So, all right. Well, I can imagine that, again, it's sort of like risk reward. Obviously, there's a 1/1 2/2 hanging out. I could see reasons, and again, Fuel and Delirium.
And that is very important.
That is. Now, next up is one of the best rares in the set, Westvale Abbey. Westvale Abbey is our first land, is a rare land that taps for a colorless. That is a colorless mana symbol right there, not just a generic colorless. 5 generic mana tap, pay a life, put a 1/1 white and black human cleric creature token onto the battlefield, 5 generic mana, tap, sack 5 creatures, transform Westvale Abbey, then untap it into, for God's sakes, this guy is ridiculous, Ormondal Profane Prince. It is a 9/7 demon with flying, lifelink, indestructible, and haste. Wow. This card is crazy good.
Yes, this card is very good. It's going to see a lot of constructed play. Get used to it. Get your set. There will be decks that play any upwards of 4 of them. Some will play 1 or 2. I feel like this card does all the things and will be a force to be reckoned with for a very long time in constructed. It's just one of the most powerful, like free rolls kind of because it's like in a 2-color deck.
Sure.
It's a colorless land that also produces creatures, or even in a 1-color deck, it does that. So it's like already decent.
Right.
And it just wins games. I've just seen this card win so many games that it shouldn't. And all the decks are going to have some answer for it. So, which there's decks that just won't, and it's going to cause a lot of free wins, especially early. So. I would put this really high on the list of things you want to be thinking about defensively and offensively in standard.
Sure.
And just an unbelievable bomb in limited because there will be stalemates. You'll be able to make some 1/1s and then sacrifice and attack with a 9/7 indestructible, and there's not a lot of exile removal in the set, so this card is very good. I don't know if it's first pickable. There's probably a lot of I think there's a lot of uncommons that'll be better than that because it is a land.
No, I'm not laughing at that. I have to laugh because the chat did something amazing. Westvale Abbey, born and raised in the graveyard is where I spent most of my days. Dude! Chomby 0886, you killed it. That's fantastic. This card is sold out at a lot of the major retailers. Like, this BS where Thing in the Ice is $20, yet this card is like $6 is ridiculous.
Well, it's $6 like sold out. I feel like people are just sitting on it. I don't know.
Well, I would. The card is crazy good. Everything I've heard about it is like, yeah, this is basically like one of the best cards in the set.
I agree. I do believe that as well, and I'm pretty sure that this will have more standard implications than like Thing in the Ice, even though Thing in the Ice is like the hot cool thing of the set right now.
Heck, I would say that this is the hot cool thing in the set.
Yeah, I would put this in the top three cards of the set.
Sure. So here we go. Altered Ego. A blue, green, 2 generic mana, then X. It's a rare shapeshifter. It's a 0/0 that cannot be countered. You may have Altered Ego into the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it enters with X additional +1/+1 counters on it. So, this is one of those, obviously, it's terrific in limited. It's amazing. You copy the best thing and then you make it even bigger. But for those who play the 100 card formats, my friends who play Commander were flipping out over this card and how cool it is. Because in Commander, a lot of really awesome things happen, a lot of really awesome creatures happen, but you want a copy of those things too. And you can get one for just 4 mana, or you can keep going and there's nothing anybody can do about it. It's going to resolve.
That is true. Can't be countered is pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's terrific. But again, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think this thing is hitting standard by any stretch.
No, we really haven't seen, like, we had a better version of this card, in my opinion, which was the one that could copy any permanent.
Sure.
I don't remember the name. It already rotated out, I think, because it didn't see any play.
Sure.
And yeah, we just haven't seen clones do much in standard for a while, so I don't really have high hopes for this one either.
Sure. I mean, Phantasmal Image was just like the most pushed ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That one was awesome because it was 2 mana. I mean, it's still seeing a ton of play.
So Ormondal Profane Prince is absolutely amazing. However, the answer is Anguished Unmaking. It's a black, a white, a generic mana for a rare instant that exiles target non-land permanent, and you lose 3 life. So Vindicate destroyed target permanent, and this exiles target non-land permanent. This is basically a better utter end. You cut off a mana, but you have to lose 3 life. Well, there's this card called Thoughtseize. That's the best discard spell of all time. That is very similar to this one.
Yeah, I mean, this card has been very impressive, and the 3 life loss hasn't been the most crucial thing. Mostly, you're losing life in large doses. Maybe some decks can get under you, but so far I haven't seen that being the case. But being able to just have 3 mana up and then playing like a Planeswalker and you're able to deal with it right away,
right,
is really nice. And that's something that we really haven't seen in Constructed, where you can deal with a Planeswalker with only 3 mana at instant speed. And so, I mean, Hero's Downfall.
Yeah, I mean, we've had Hero's Downfall, but now this exiles it, so none of this like indestructible crap that you're worried about. Like, this thing just gets rid of everything.
Yeah, and it also just gets rid of any non-land permanent where Hero's Downfall was just creature or Planeswalker. So there's been a lot of times I've seen getting rid of Stasis Snares, for example, and getting like unlocking Avacons and things of that nature. So I do feel like this card is going to be at least a 2 of in a lot of black-white decks, maybe a third on the board, but I don't think you need a full set.
Well, it's probably just too much life loss for a full set.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't want to draw too many of them and be the only removal that you draw. But I have been very happy with having 2 copies in every black-white deck I've played so far. So I do approve of this card, and it will see a lot of constructive play.
Absolutely. It's also nice to have, a built-in answer to Ulamog, in 3 mana.
Which is very true. Being able to deal with Ulamog is pretty important.
Absolutely. All right, so Fevered Visions is next. It's a red, a blue, and a generic mana for a rare enchantment. At the beginning of each player's end step, that player draws a card. If the player is your opponent and has 4 or more cards in hand, Fevered Visions deals 2 damage to him or her. So for you, it's a Howling Mine, and for them, it's going to buzz them for 2 damage if they have 4 or more cards.
Yeah, and you get to be the first one to get value out of it, which is always, no matter what, which is really cool of this card. So
right.
I don't know if it's going to be good, but it has potential.
I don't know. Yeah, this to me is like, I think it's just casual only. I don't see this happening constructed because your opponent is just going to stay at 3 cards. You know what I mean? Like, or 2 cards, and then at the end of their turn they're going to draw their 3rd card thanks to this, and you're like, okay, well then it just becomes like a weird Howling Mine for both of us.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like I don't know if I hopes for it, but I could see it being good enough for standard. Mostly
I
because like the blue red decks need a lot of cards and their abilities are super powerful and might potentially in the late game with cards like Pyromancer's Goggles or Thing in the Ice, just be better than whatever the opponent's drawing extra cards of.
is that wait, I think I just heard the egg timer go off. Is there a pie that's baking?
No.
Come on.
What? No, I'm not just giving you freebies.
I like freebies. Freebies are the
I'm,
best bees.
I'm not going to give you a freebie. I want to be passionate about my pie bets.
Fine, passionate. All right, here we go, baby. The Get Rog Monster. Woo woo. It's even got "the" in the name. That's how awesome this stupid frog is. It's a green, black, 3 generic mana, 6/6 legendary frog horror. It is a mythic rare. It has Death Touch. At the beginning of your upkeep, you sacrifice the Get Rog monster unless you sacrifice a land. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. Whenever one or more land cards are put into your graveyard from anywhere, you draw a card. So I've seen a lot of people who are super excited about this card, not only in Commander, which I've heard some Commander people, who I hang out with at cool stuff, like going, man, the Get Rog monster is awesome. I want to build around that card. That's totally sweet. But then I start seeing it showing up in standard lists. Like we're talking about Spirit Monger stats. It's a 6/6 with Death Touch, which is always really weird. It's like the Grave Titan problem. It's like you're already a 6/6. You don't need Death Touch, dude. You're big enough. It's
Well,
cool.
but it's just an answer, a really good in play answer to Thing in the Ice, which is why it probably has Death Touch.
I suppose it is interesting how Thing in the Ice bounces non-horror creatures, and there's a lot of horror creatures that you might be able to play, such as this one. Which is cool. The ability to play the additional land is fantastic. You sacrifice a land during your upkeep, but you're going to draw that card again. You're going to draw a card for it. Using cards like Evolving Wilds is sweet because you get to draw cards off of it, which is nice. Ultimately, I don't know, man. I think this card could get there. This card seems really sweet.
Yeah, no, I do think that it is fine. I've tested with it. It's I mean it
It's
so like you see a card like this and it has a bunch of text and yes you get to draw cards and you get to play additional lands,
right.
but is this really that much different than the 5/5 for 5 red mythic? Like truth be
Yeah.
told,
No,
is it
yeah.
what?
Well, because you're drawing cards. That's way different than being
You're
able to.
not drawing cards. You're sacrificing resources for other resources.
Well, not necessarily. Well, again, in the Evolving Wild example, you are getting a free card draw off of that. You're getting the land out of your deck, and you're getting the card draw off of it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. But what I'm saying is just putting like arguing that because I have an evolving wilds, I therefore make this card better than the other one. I'm not saying that this card isn't better, but I'm saying that like they're so close to each other that like yes, this is slightly better, but saying one is just completely unplayable and this card like has a lot of potential to me, just like I don't feel like they're that far off the scale from each other.
Wow.
I'm not saying that this card is bad, and I'm saying that like this card is playable. I have played with it a little bit. It's interesting. I haven't drawn it that often, but like when I have, it's just a big dumb idiot, and that's usually good enough. But at the same time, this card is just a big dumb idiot.
Well, and so yeah, okay. I mean, like I can just
I'm not trying to deflate you, but like
no. It's not about deflating. I was reading something from the chat, and they were like, well, it's when a land enters from anywhere, from the library, from the hand, from the battlefield, whatever.
yeah, so if you mill a bunch of cards, yeah, and then you can draw some cards. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's not bad. I'm saying if it's in play, you're probably winning. But the same thing goes for the 5/5 for 5 mana. Like if that card's in play, you're probably also winning the game. They are mythics that don't have come into play abilities,
This
and
is
that
true.
cost a lot of mana. Like these are similar stats to cards that just don't ever get there because they're 5 drops that don't have come into place.
Well, I mean, technically, you could play into the land when you play this guy, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, like I'm like, and the extra land can make Sylvan Advocate turn into a 4/5 immediately,
So
which
this,
is also just a huge benefit for this card. Like this card does have a lot more words on it, but when people are just looking at a 5/5 for 5 that has a mythic and a really good ability, that could just end a game and just say it's completely unplayable because it's just a 5/5 for 5, then the Gitrog monster is very similar.
I don't know if I agree with that per se. So what I'm saying is, it sounds like it's pie bedtime.
no, this card will see top 8 play.
Oh
I
gosh, there
will
we are
probably
again.
like
Wait. You're saying that this card's going to see top 8 play, but you're equating it to the 5 mana 5/5 red mythic, which I think is
it's also hype. It's also
yes,
cards that get hype. But what I'm saying is that yes, this I'm not arguing that this isn't better. But what I'm saying is just because it has a bunch of cool things attached to it that might potentially work
sure.
doesn't make a 5 mana 6/6 that doesn't have a come into play ability that much better than a 5 mana 5/5 that doesn't have a come into play ability.
All right, we're gonna
Because they
keep
both have
moving.
good abilities, yeah.
We got to keep moving, but the frog monster is pretty insane. That's all I'm going to
No,
say.
it is really cool.
And I will note for those who are watching, I've recently moved to Florida, and the other day I got in my car
You told me this.
and a frog jumped on my passenger side window inside the car. And I'm not talking like one of those like little tiny frogs that are like super cute. No, this is like a big frog, man. There's a big old frog with big old eyes looking at me, and I was freaking out, man. I was like, what is happening? Stupid frog. It's all in my business. I'm flipping out, jumping out of the car, opening the door, and then the stupid thing tries to go underneath the seat. And oh my God, how do I get a frog out of my car? I don't know. Eventually, I'm running to the back of my car to get like something I could maybe put it in or push it out with. I don't know. And then like kind of crawled out of the passenger side. How in the hell does a frog get in your car? I don't understand it. All right, moving on. Invocation of Saint Traft. Yo, dog, I heard you like Geist of Saint Traft, so I put a Geist of Saint Traft on your Geist of Saint Traft so you can Geist while you Geist. It is a blue, white, and a generic mana for a rare aura. It's an enchant creature that whenever this creature attacks, put a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking, and you exile that token at end of combat. So basically, you turn the creature into Geist of Saint Traft. Geist of Saint Traft was really sweet. This lets you basically get all of the abilities of him, but not be a hexproof 2/2.
Yeah, so you can put this on a flyer, for example, or a big hexproof creature, a bigger hexproof creature. But at the same time, I don't think this card is that good because Geist was great because it was a tempo format with Delvers, with Snapcaster Mage, with a hexproof body, where this is just an enchant creature.
Right. I mean, well, let's get it straight. Like, first of all, in limited, this card is amazing.
Yes, in limited, this card is going to be bonkers. Like, hopefully, there's ways to protect your creature, but I could see it just being the final blow or getting close to winning the game.
Sure. Which I think is fan freaking tastic. So like putting this on anything with evasion is amazing. Putting this on something like even when it's like skulk, that's like a 1 power skulk creature, this card is fantastic.
Yeah.
So anything where you're able to kind of get your creature around being blocked in some fashion makes this card unbelievable. But I really think, in other words, one of those throwbacks, right? It's a perfect throwback to a sweet card that we remember from the first block.
Yep.
And I think that's great. Nahiri the Harbinger. Oh, baby. This was Gathering Magic spoiler that Jarvis, you got to talk about. It's a white, a red, and 2 generic mana. It's a 4 loyalty planeswalker. Obviously, it's mythic. +2, you may discard a card. If you do, you draw a card. -2, you exile target enchantment, tapped artifact, or tapped creature. Or -8, you search your library for an artifact or creature card, you put it onto the battlefield, and you shuffle your library. It gains haste. Return it to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. So she is the Harbinger. She brings something from the depths, and she brings it with her. And I really love the flavor of this card. I think this card is super sweet. It enables madness. Obviously, when you use the first ability for Fiery Temper, all of the flavor judges are freaking out and high-fiving each other, and it's great. She can protect herself, which is like one of the number one things a Planeswalker has to do. And ultimately, it's the second red-white Planeswalker ever made.
And the first one was pretty damn good.
Johnny Vengeant was unbelievable. They also gave that card away as a pre-release foil. That was back before they realized they shouldn't give away mythics as pre-release foils, because people will buy packs to get those mythics instead of you having to give them away for free. They did the same with Embercool for what it's worth. But regardless, Nahiri is a BA. But the question is, how BA is the BA?
I don't know. I'm just going to let this one simmer and find out, lose to it before I start playing it. I haven't really found a home for her yet. It's also just not the kind of Magic I generally play.
Oh, what kind of Magic do you like to play, bruh?
Well, come on, I play with green cards, and I like Collected Company, and I've liked Death Miss Raptor in the past. I feel like this is going to be in a more like red white shell or maybe a three color shell. I don't really know. Maybe it's in a. I have no idea. Like it's a card that I haven't worked on because I don't know what's her home. But it also could just be another Narset trap. Who knows?
It could be a Narset trap. Narset, man, Narset got some serious hype. That girl, whoo boy.
Yeah, and the card never really did anything besides being Shaheen Sarani's top 32 deck lists.
Of
But
course, because it's Shaheen Sarani.
I love Shaheen.
No, no, we're big fans of Shaheen's. We're friends.
For
We're
me
great.
digging on him, yeah, I'm friends with him. When this is the second time I've dug on him during the set review, so I just want everyone in the Twitch chat to know that I really like Shaheen and I'm good friends with him, and so like I just like ragging on all of his. I mean, I have said to him on Twitter straight up, I'm like, stop playing these garbage decks and you'll just crush everything. Because I think he's very good at Magic and just plays really bad decks because he likes them.
But he plays them really well.
Yeah,
right?
and he still does well with them. He top fours like a lot of like legacy opens with his just Esper garbage deck. Like if he just played a real legacy deck, I could see him just winning a lot of tournaments because he's very good at the format.
Esper garbage, Esper garbage fire dot deck.
Yeah,
There you
but
go.
anyway, so I think that this card could fall into that same trap. I'm just gonna wait to see what other people do with it before I really pass judgment onto it.
Certainly, a 4 loyalty for 4 mana planeswalker that goes to 6 loyalty is something to be aware of and to look at closely.
I agree.
You can't just say like this card's crap. It's never going to do anything. It's like it's doing something. I don't know if
We've
it's going
said
to
that
get
we've
there.
said those exact same words about many planeswalkers that haven't gotten there.
Fine.
About 4 mana to get up to 6, like
Well, I still
we have
want it
said
to get
this
there.
before.
Fine. I see what you did there, and I understand, but, you know, hope springs eternal, buddy.
All right.
Olivia mobilized for war, which, again, as I noted in the show, is the best, like, moniker ever. Can you imagine? Brad mobilized for war? Like,
I haven't been mobilized for anything in years. Let's just be honest.
Brad mobilized for Netflix. Like, okay,
Yes.
perfect.
I will definitely mobilize for Netflix. Netflix and chill.
Dude, it's getting
Butcher
late.
that one.
Here we go. So it's a red, a black, and a generic mana for a 3/3 mythic vampire knight. Obviously, she's legendary because it's Olivia. She has flying, and whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may discard a card. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on that creature. It gains haste until end of turn, and it becomes a vampire in addition to its other types. So someone's got to tell me. Someone's got to figure out how to explain how a harder to cast gnarled mass that flies is somehow mythic worthy and is actually going to get there in standard.
It's not gonna be me.
I just don't get it. I don't understand it. Why doesn't Olivia at least have haste? Like, at least.
Well, that's pretty messed up. Then we're just like talking Mantis Rider all over again, and we don't want Mantis Rider again, especially an easier to cast one.
Well, I mean, if they want red black to work, they got to give it some tools.
Yeah, but the problem is you have to balance thing, and red black still probably this card is still probably going to see some play. A 3/3 flyer for 3 is fine, especially since if it's not dealt with, like if your opponent just plays something on their turn, like the damage output the next turn could just devastating.
I mean, maybe, but
Well, Thunderbreak region attack for 8, and then they're like, well, now I just want to kill, and you discarded a spell, and they're like, all right, well, I guess I got to kill this Thunderbreak region, take another 3, and then you're like, Dark Dwellers, flashback the card I discarded, give it +1/+1 in haste, and kill you. Like, so, like, what I'm saying is, unchecked, you could be dead in 2 more turns.
sure.
So, I do feel that, like, this card will see play, is powerful enough. You just have to play with it. It's like you brought up Tarmogoyf before. You don't really see it until you see it in action.
Sure.
Or, in war.
Right, mobilized
Yes.
is what you're saying. And
Once
you see it
mobilized, we might understand how good this card is. But just seeing it on paper, yeah, of course, it's not flashy. It's not shiny. Like it doesn't seem intuitive on how it's actually going to execute a game win. And people are like adding, because it's a vampire, people are putting it in vampire decks and playing mythics that we have already seen not win, like Drana.
So, dude, did you get a souvenir when you went to Magical Christmas Land just a minute ago?
When I just went to Thunderbreak region to Dark Dwellers,
Yeah.
just playing 3/4 ofs in your deck and just naturally curving.
Oh,
my God,
now we're not in Magical Christmas Land anymore. Now we're like, well, I'm playing 4 of it, so I'm always gonna have it.
I'm not.
Dude, I'm just saying, for me, You got to sell this flying gnarled mass that does something later when it attacks, has to live that entire time. You have to resolve the second creature. In.
You're in? You're in on Olivia?
I'm in on Olivia.
So I have
I think she's way overhyped. I don't like it. I think trust me.
I get Olivia?
You get Olivia.
I get Olivia.
Look, I would love to be wrong just because I want a red-black deck to be awesome. I just don't see a flying gnarled mass getting there.
Chat, what do you think of me getting Olivia? That just seems like the biggest free roll of all time.
Of all time?
Dig Through Time was the free roll. Yeah, Dig Through Time, you got a good one. I don't know what I was off that day.
Well, now they're all saying rest in peace, Evan, so GG. Yeah. Evan, why do you want pie? Evan loves pie. Pie in the face. Pie on top of my scroll. Whatever. You got me, buddy. It's okay. Prized Amalgam is next. It's a black, a blue, and a generic mana for a 3/3 rare zombie. When a creature enters the battlefield, if it entered from your graveyard, or if you cast it from your graveyard, you return Prized Amalgam from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped at the beginning of the next end step. So this is a card that could this actually put zombies into Constructed?
I think like a zombie hybrid to a deck. Like there was the blue-black Liliana, Nantuko Husk, Whirler Rogue, Sidisi's Faithful deck, Hangerback Walker. It was like, I don't know what it was called like Blue-Black Aristocrats.
Sure.
And this card could fit in that strategy because like Liliana can bring back creatures so easily. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it is just an actual trained Armadon.
Right. It's a gnarled mass. It's a trained Armadon. I get it.
Yeah, and we already have like Death Misraptor, Den Protector shenanigans going on, and I don't even know how good that is yet. Like it doesn't feel busted so far in testing that a creature that doesn't have Death Touch is just a 3/3 feels a little weak. But that said, that's a strategy that you could play Jace, and you could be like looting these away and then bringing them back later on. So
right.
Who knows? It might be good. It might not be. I assume it's going to be more casual than hyper competitive. It's not somewhere I'm going to explore right away.
Right, and no, and I understand. It's one of those, like, it needs a synergistic deck to make itself work.
Yeah.
But when it has a synergistic deck, or if it's just able to get multiples in the yard, putting 6 power and 6 toughness into play for free is a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a good feeling. So, and in Limited, you're going to play this in your blue-black decks. There's not a question. It's terrific. Don't question that ever.
Yeah.
Sigarda Heron's Grace is a white, green, and 3 generic mana for a 4/5 mythic legendary angel. She has flying. You and humans you control have hexproof. 2 generic mana, exile a card from your graveyard, put a 1/1 white human soldier creature token onto the battlefield. So this is a good old-fashioned bomb mythic rare. It's amazing in the colors it's amazing in. It's worth splashing for because of how powerful it is. The ability to just make 2 tokens rather at whenever you feel like it. I want to make a 1/1
you don't
human.
even care about Delirium if you can just produce that many 1/1s.
Well, or you can just work around it. You know what I mean?
Exactly, yeah.
You're like, okay, here's my 4 card types. Everything else is going to become a human. Thank you.
Human.
Man, it's getting late.
No, we're getting tired.
I'm getting blabber diddle blabber. All right, so yeah. Anyway, Sigarda Constructed.
No, what?
I'm just asking questions, man.
No, it's the same converted mana cost as Avacyn.
So there's no way that's happening.
Yeah, and it doesn't have a come into play. It's just like the same thing. Like a 5-drop without a come into play. It's just a 4/5. Yes, it can block Avacyn all day long, right. But that's not how Magic works.
No, it's not high enough impact, basically.
No, yeah, this card, it's blah.
It's cute. I'll give you that.
I wish we got the old Sigarda back.
Right. Sorin Grim Nemesis is next. For a black, a white, and 4 generic mana, it is a mythic planeswalker. Obviously, it's mythic. 6 loyalty starting out, so that's huge. +1, reveal the top card of your library, put that card into your hand. Each opponent loses life equal to its converted mana cost. -X, it deals X damage to target creature or planeswalker, and you gain X life. -9, put a number of 1/1 black Vampire Knight creature tokens with lifelink onto the battlefield equal to the highest life total among all players. So I was listening to the top level podcast from our friends Mike Flores and Mr. Chapin, and they were talking about this card, and they sold me. Let's put it that way. This card is the business. This card is cray cray. It's super crazy good. Just imagining like you plus one it, and then next turn if you draw another one, you're like, oh fine, that's great. I will deal 7 to your huge monster. I will gain 7. I will play another Sorin. I will plus the Sorin. If I get up to 9, I'm able to make a huge army that's going to win the game, or at the very least make sure I don't die. It's one of the best control finishers I've ever seen. And yeah, everything looks great on this card except the art, which is like, ugh.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with everything you said. I've been playing with this card a lot. Black White is like right when this set came out, I actually just bought 4 cards from the set. I bought 4 different cards. Avacyn's, Sorin's, Anguish Unmakings, and Decorations and Stones. I was like, I'm gonna play Black White.
Nice.
And I've been playing a lot of different variations of Black White, and I still haven't found the combination that I think is like worthy of taking to SCG Baltimore next weekend. But throughout the testing, my numbers of Sorins have went from 1 to 3, and I'm currently just building my decks to be able to play 3 Sorins, and that's just it because they work really well in multiples. Like you can let's say you -4 to kill something like a Gideon, but you have a blocker for their token. Let's just say that's all that's on the board.
Sure.
And they play something big. Now, if you have another Sorin, you can just -2 and then play the other one in -3 to kill off the next big thing. And so they do work really well together because you can just 86 to 1 in play. Sure. Also, just the tick up. I have just games have went from thinking they're going to go for like 5 or 6 turns into like 2 turns.
Wow.
Like all of a sudden, you play it and then you just flip over an Abyss and you're like, take 5, and then you flip over like a 4-drop and you're like, oh wow, I just have to deal like 8 more damage and the game's over.
Wow.
Yeah, so the card's very powerful.
Yeah, this card is super good. So here's the here's the punchline. Okay, Ultra Pro is making products out of Shadows over Innistrad artwork, right? As they do. And I believe they're making an Avacyn double-sided playmat, which is cool. They're making sleeves of Jace, the Planeswalker Jace. They're making sleeves of the Planeswalker Nahiri, right? Mm-hmm. They're making sleeves of what's the other Planeswalker we have here? Help me out. Oh, of Arlen Cord, right? They're making sleeves of Merciless Resolve instead of Sorin Grim Nemesis.
Wow.
A common rather than the mythic rare Planeswalker. That cracks me up so hard. Now, look, man, I know I'm not trying to crap all over Eric Deschamps, okay? I've met that guy. He's really incredibly talented. I've actually seen, when you actually look at this card in high res, it doesn't look nearly as bad. It actually looks pretty sweet. But when they shrunk it down to card size, for whatever reason, it just looks way worse.
Well, it's also, I mean, maybe it's like the direction that the art had to go because, like, the storyline is we don't know where Sorin's at, right?
Okay.
Like, that's part of it. I don't know the whole storyline, but from what I've understood is Jace is looking for Sorin, Nahiri's looking for Sorin, and so, like, this is probably depicting, like, this, like, really weird storyline of Sorin where he's just in this weird place, and they wanted that as the background, and everything about the card just made it, you know, not that great. Because the thing is yeah, the art looks weird, but it's also the pose. The pose just looks so unnatural to us. It doesn't look like, it looks like a common 2/2 for colorless white soldier pose.
Yeah, it's not really dynamic. It's not epic. And the way his face is like scrunched when they turn into card size, nothing really looks good there. So not going to harp on it forever. I'm just going to say, like, this is going to be one of the best cards in Standard with some of the most disappointing artwork.
Agreed.
Brain in a Jar is next. It's a 2-mana artifact. It's a rare. For 1 generic mana tap, put a charge counter on it. Then you may cast an instant or sorcery card with a converted mana cost equal to the number of charge counters on Brain in a Jar from your hand without paying its mana cost. For 3 generic mana, you can tap you can 3 generic mana tap, remove X charge counters from Brain in a Jar to scry X. So I know Aether Vial, and you, sir, are no Aether Vial. But there has been a lot of people who've tried to be, really excited about this and try to build around it. To me, I think it's just like a really silly rare that's going to go nowhere.
Yeah, no. The only cool thing about this card, it's really counterintuitive to the strategy, is that you can activate to put a charge counter on it, and then no, you can't because it's both tap.
Yeah, they tap for both. You can't both put a counter and scry. You cannot do that unless you do it at the end of their turn and then during your upkeep or something.
No, I was saying that if you could then play a 0 converted mana cost card, which would be like one of the Hypergenesis or something.
Sure.
But no, this card sucks.
Well, it sucks in constructed. Even probably sucks in limited. But I know, Good old here comes the C word. Commander players are going to love this thing. They're going to love it. You know why? Because you get to sit around, you get to do cool stuff, you get to make things get bigger, you get a bunch of turns, you get to play this off your soul ring. Yeah, baby. That's what I'm talking about.
And you can play sorcerer at instant speed in Commander, which does seem pretty awesome.
Which seems terrific. So this card is really cool. It's not for you, Brad. It's not for you, buddy. Corrupted Graftstone, or Graftstone rather. Corrupted Graftstone is a mana rock. It's been a while since they've made an actual mana rock. It's a 2 generic mana artifact. It's rare. It enters the battlefield tapped, and you can tap to choose a color of a card in your graveyard. Add 1 mana of that color to your mana pool. So you do have to have something in your graveyard, but a 2 mana rock basically is almost an extinct species in Magic at this point.
Yeah, and so this is like a fixed version where it's not just going to always accelerate you. It can if you played something like Traverse the Ovenwald on turn 1, or Duress, or Fiery Impulse, something like that.
Sure.
But it also could easily generate mana for playing 2 spells on turn 3, where you could play like a 2-drop into a 2-drop, or a 1-drop into a 3, so on and so forth, and be able to play like something like a Dark Dwellers on turn 4.
Right.
So I think that this card is definitely going to play better than it looks, but people just have to work on it.
Yeah, I mean, I would actually expect to see a lot of play. It may take a little while to kind of catch on or be understood, but like a 2 mana rock, that's a rare thing.
Yeah.
And as a result, it's very powerful. There's a reason that it's rare, because it's going to be wanted and sought. It's going to be one of the ways that they sell the set. And the other half is that it's so unique these days that, they want it to be something that you kind of have to work for.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Epitaph Golem is a 5 generic mana, uncommon 3/5. For 2 generic mana, put target card from your graveyard on the bottom of your library. So, this is a weird ability.
Yeah, it just feels like if you think you're going to deck, because like, or putting something in and then shuffling is the advantages. Like, if it could put anything on the bottom, it makes sense, because you could keep your opponent off Delirium. But because it's your graveyard, you can just keep yourself off Delirium, which is just weird.
Which is weird. I mean, like, maybe I don't know, man. This is one of those like strange things that maybe it comes into play later or something. But a 5 mana 3/5, I ain't getting out of bed for a 5 mana 3/5, dude.
No.
Not with an ability that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, not excited about this card.
Moving on. Explosive Apparatus is a 1 generic mana common artifact, 3 generic mana, tap, sack it to deal 2 damage to target creature or player. Also known as Aeolipile, is just OP for our 2016 Magic. You know what that card is?
No.
It is, I want to say it is from Homelands, but it could be from Fallen Empires. Tell me what you think about this card while I find it.
Oh, this card seems good at fueling Delirium, and that's specifically what it's for. It can deal with some early uncommon werewolves before they flip. Also can be good in decks that also have werewolves, so you can like play this early, play a couple werewolves, and then use this to kill something and not actually play a spell. So you're progressing your board position while also not casting spells. So that's going to be a good way to kill your opponent's 2/2, allow your 2 toughness creature to get through, and then transform it into something bigger. So I think that this card is going to have a lot of applications in this format, and we will see it being played quite frequently.
Woohoo! So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to look at all of the colorless cards. I believe, as they mentioned in the chat, it is from Fallen Empires. Just trying to find it. There we go. Aeolipile. It's not Aeolipile. It's Aeolipile. It is a 2 mana artifact, 1 tap sack to have it deal 2 damage to a target, which at the time was a creature or player or whatever. So yeah, this card is just worse than that, and it's weird that it's worse than a Fallen Empires card.
That is true.
But we will still play it because it's still good.
Yeah, it's a fine effect.
Yeah, it's a worthy effect. Haunted Cloak is next. It's a 3 generic mana uncommon equipment. Equipped creature has vigilance, trample, and haste, and it equips for 1 mana only. Thoughts?
Probably bad, depends on how many big effects you have in your deck, but you have to have a high investment of a turn to cast it.
Hmm.
And not giving any base pumps is pretty bad. Like just giving a creature flying, trample, and haste sounds great if you're talking about a dragon or an angel or some big behemoth werewolf.
Right.
But like you're still going to draw like a 2/2, and not being able to just use this as a way to pump the creature to a 3/3 or something, just making it better in combat in all situations will make this card a lot worse.
Yeah, I mean this it almost feels like the rich getting richer almost. You know what I mean? Like if you already have an advantage with like a super huge monster thing or whatever that you want to put this on it, then it's already good. So why are you working so hard to make it, gooder?
Vigilance is big game though. Like if
Vigilance
you
is
have the
big game.
biggest, yeah, if you have the biggest threat on the board and you can give it vigilance and trample, it's a good clock. So there are upsides to it because of vigilance. Now, if it just had trample and haste, it would be significantly worse. Probably much worse than like if it said like sorry, never mind,
Like
whatever.
reach or something. It doesn't matter. But like
Yeah,
basically it also, I mean, the good side of this card is you can say, well, for a kicker of one generic mana for every creature you play thereafter, you're able to give them vigilance, trample, haste from the get-go.
yeah, but that's probably not going to be relevant for many effects later in the game.
True. So ultimately it's kind of middling, but I think you want to play this one to see how it works.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume not good, probably board in if I think it'd be good, but I probably will never board it in.
Fair enough. Magnifying Glass is next. It's a 3 generic mana uncommon artifact. You tap to add a colorless mana to your mana pool. 4 generic mana, tap, investigate. So we've talked about how good investigating is, how good the clue tokens are, how prevalent they're going to be. If you pay 7 mana to get 1, and then 4 mana to get some more, is that enough?
No, I think this card is going to be good because it taps for mana too. It's a mana rock. So, like
Sure.
early in the game, it can be potential acceleration for your 4 and 5 drops. Later in the game, it can investigate, but also then the next turn, not try to, the turns you're not going to investigate, you're able to help break the clues.
Mm-hmm.
Might not be for every deck, but might be a good um, effect in a more expensive deck, like the green white humans or the green white expensive decks, like with a bunch of removal. I do think that this card is going to see some play.
Maybe. I mean, for me, I can also see where, like, you played with Sears Lantern, right?
Yeah,
Is this better or worse than Sears Lantern?
better.
Really?
Yes, because for two, like when people were activating Sears Lantern, they didn't really have much going on, and I bet they could have paid 4 mana over 2 mana.
Sure, to draw cards and whatnot.
Yeah, no, this card is better. Also, having clues in play, or like having clues in play can like generate advantages with other cards. So
Right. Also, let's note that artwork is absolutely terrifying.
yeah, it's great.
That's freaking. Ugh. There's an eye in your body, and it's coming out. Thanks. Murderer's Axe. This is a great name. 4 generic mana for an uncommon equipment. Equip creature gets +2/+2, but to equip, you must discard a card. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean it is really cool. This was there was what I can't remember the one. It was sacrifice a creature to give +4/+2 back in the day. But I do like this card because it's going to help with madness.
Sure.
So I can see it coming into play, discarding maybe even an extra land to just get that +2/+2 right away. But later on, when you want to equip or get something with madness into play, you're able to just make it cheaper. I don't know how great it's going to be, but I think it has potential.
Yeah, this to me is like when you're in the vampire deck, when you're playing all the madness cards, this is exactly the type of equipment that you want.
Yeah.
And even when you don't, maybe. But like anything, if you're madness on one color or the other, you know what I mean? Like you're just playing the black madness or you're just playing the red madness, I still think you want this card as a great enabler.
Yeah, no, it's very good.
And also note that you can discard as many times as you want. You can be like, I'll equip and play madness. I'll equip and I'll play madness again. I'll equip. You know what I mean? Like you can just keep doing it.
Yeah, it's not just one turn.
Yeah,
one
there's
turn
no
thing.
limit and there's no mana cost. Runaway Carriage is next. It's a 4 generic mana, uncommon 5/6 artifact creature construct with trample, and if it attacks or blocks, you sacrifice it at end of combat. So you get your one time. Is a one time enough for this card?
I don't know. I think it could be boarded in matchups where they have gigantic creatures that you just need something for.
Yeah,
I
you need
don't think
something.
attacking with it one time is going to be enough because at that point it's just like a really bad lava axe.
Sure.
But being able to block against bigger creatures might make this worth having.
Fair enough. I don't know. It's one of those, like, I don't think it's like super impressive. And I've always kind of hated these types of cards because you get your one time. If your one time doesn't really work out, then you're out big time because then you get
Yeah, I
nothing
mean,
out of it.
I'm not saying that this is like the going into the draft strategy, but I'm saying if you need to make magic happen to win a match of magic, you could board this in to block a bigger werewolf, or at least like stabilize the board.
Right. So if you're making magic happen with magic while you're magicking, you can magic. Okay, got it.
Yep.
Shard of Broken Glass is next. An amazingly flavorful card. It is 1 generic mana for a common equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+0. Whenever a equipped creature attacks, you may put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. It equips for 1 generic mana. So it enables delirium. It fuels delirium. Thank you very much.
Very much so.
I'm just, the only thing I'm really kind of upset about this card is that the blood is black instead of the blood being red, basically.
Maybe it's just too dark to. It is actually red.
Yeah. One of the good things, if we want to go back to Runaway Carriage real quickly, and thank you very much, Ninja Chico 42, is that it provides 2 different card types for delirium.
Yes. No. That I was going to bring that up with the gargoyle, but yeah.
Sure. Well, you did bring it up the gargoyle. Well, did you?
Well, I brought it up that it feels delirium. I didn't say it was 2, but for the most part, like I do think it's cool that it produces 2. But like I said, creatures are just you can't win at Magic without creatures. So I don't really consider delirium needing 3 types because I feel like a creature is going to trade before delirium should be on anyway.
Sure. So we have Shard of Broken Glasses here. I don't know. It seems like this is one of those like bad equipments that can look good because like look at all the potential and look at what it can do for your delirium and triggers or whatever. But +1/+0 isn't really good enough and feels a little weak.
No, it is weak. I mean, it's supposed to be weak, but it also can help fuel delirium. It can be good in like a white aggressive equipment shell. It's like one of the. I mean, it's I think the best common equipment.
Really?
Well, there isn't many.
There isn't a lot, let's face it. Well,
Yeah.
fair enough. So, I mean, when the bar's that low, okay, great.
Yeah.
This is not a card I think, you want to run multiples of in any fashion. But, if it can kind of slide in there, and yes, you need delirium, it's a thing you can do.
Yeah.
This is really a 23rd card for me. If I'm playing this card, I feel like I'm stretching already.
No, it's probably a 24th card.
Right, which means you go, oh, sideboard.
Yeah, you're only playing 16. No, you're playing 16 lands.
Oh, of course you are.
Like you have to be super aggressive. You need equipment like.
Right. So Skeleton Key is up next. It's a 1 generic mana uncommon equipment. Equipped creature has Skulk. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. If you do, you discard a card, and it equips for 2 generic mana. So for 3 mana total, you can turn your guy into a looter when he attacks. You can basically give it evasion, which is great too, and works best when you put it on the small power creatures.
Yeah, or just like what's cool is any creature. Like
Yeah.
if the board's really big and built up, like it's gonna have weird board states.
Right.
Oh,
Look at you.
I couldn't hold it back.
Wow. Couldn't
forced
even
through.
handle it. Oh,
Yeah, I
man.
couldn't.
Well, we're almost done,
fucking
buddy.
pass
We
out.
got to hold in there. Skeleton Key.
Trying.
Yeah, I know, right? Skeleton Key is sweet though. It ultimately any spirit you have that flies, anything with evasion is great. Any low power card is great. It seems good early and late because you get in early, obviously you're looting, you're fueling delirium. But you get in late, you're still be able to draw cards and find your bombs, and that's what you want to do. And when you
I just can't wait till there's a set where there's nothing like Delve or Prowess or Delirium, and you're just gonna end every card with "You're making magic happen."
You're making the magic, y'all. Derp, derp, derp. All right. Slayer's Plate is next. This is our rare equipment. It is a 3 generic mana rare equipment. Equipped creature gets +4/+2. Whenever equipped creature dies, if it was a human, you put a 1/1 white flying spirit creature token onto the battlefield and it equips for 3 mana. So for 6 mana total, you're able to equip it. If it's a human, it's great because it's going to make a flyer that you can pay 3 mana and suddenly that flyer is a 5/3, which is amazing. So this seems like all upside and I want to play it every time I get it.
It does feel really good. I'm not sure. I mean, like there's a little part of like my brain going like my really good limited friends are just like, of course this isn't good, but
Really?
I mean,
Too much mana investment type thing?
too much mana investment can fall really behind, can get blown out by tricks. But at the same time, it does feel like it closes games where it's good enough. So this is like one of the inevitability engines. Like if your deck needs something like that, like if your deck has a lot of early game, not a lot of late game, this is going to be one of those cards that you could play. But if your deck has a ton of late game, it doesn't seem like you want this in addition to like bigger threats and good removal.
Right, and I agree with that. So, Slayer's Blade, however, I think is very good. It's one of those cards, like, if I open it in draft, I go, like, where on the scale do I pick this thing? I don't know.
I have no idea either. I won first pick it.
I don't think I want to first pick this card. I don't think I want to. I wouldn't expect to see this card late by any stretch, but it's not a card where I'm like, oh man, Slayer's Plate, and I'm like high fiving my buddies. I don't think that
Yeah.
happens. Tamio's Journal is next. It's a 5 generic mana rare legendary artifact, and at the beginning of your upkeep, you investigate. Tap, sacrifice 3 clues, search your library for a card, and put that card into your hand, then shuffle your library. So, as we went through every card in this set, this card, I'm easily saying that is a huge bomb in limited.
Yeah, no, this card seems great in limited.
Yeah, this card seems ridiculous in limited.
Yeah, if you need spells, you can do it now, but like for every 3 turns, you just get an extra whatever card out of your deck.
Well, not to mention every single card is making clues, and every creature's making clues.
Yeah, so it's probably going to be
like,
faster. Yeah,
right. I mean, I could certainly see a world where you pay 5, you put down Tamio's Journal, you tap, you sacrifice 3 clues right away, and then go Demonic Tutor, which is terrific. So enjoy this thing in limited. Obviously, I don't think it's going anywhere in constructed, but it doesn't need to because it's really exciting. It's a great story piece, and I'm happy for that. True Faith Censor is next. A 2 generic mana common equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has vigilance. As long as it's equipped to a human, it gets an additional +1/+0, and it equips for 2 generic mana. So if it's a human and you're paying 4 mana, you're getting +2/+1. If it's anything else, you get +2, you get +1/+1, but it does have vigilance no matter what, which is nice. But kind of boring. Kind of
yeah, I feel like it's medium. I don't think it's going to be that great. Equipment generally hasn't been that good in limited for a while.
Sure.
Because when they make a really good limited or equipment card, then it just kind of takes over limited formats. But yeah, so I just think that this is just another one of those equipment that exists that I don't think is going to be good.
Well, I mean, and we've seen some cards in white that care about equipment and how many equipment you control. If this is
And you'll
equipped to a
play in
creature,
that deck, yeah.
yeah. So those are the types of decks that really value from this, like, really kind of like piddly equipment that isn't really excited in any way. But when it works, I think it really works. Do you think this is better than Shard of Broken Glass?
Probably not.
And I would disagree.
Because it's 1 and 1, and this is 2 and 2.
Yeah, but it also gives +2/+1 versus +1/+0.
I mean, that's very true.
So, either way, I would argue this one's better. I can understand if the other one's better.
I mean, let's just say, for example, both equipment are against each other, and you both have 3/3s. Well, the creatures are trading every time.
There you go. So Wicker Witch is next. A 3 generic mana, 3/1 common Scarecrow. Okay. Little toughness, which means it's going to die quickly, which means it does what?
Fuels Delirium.
2 different card types, y'all. Both the artifact and the creature. Half of your Delirium's already done with this one. It's great in the aggressive decks, but otherwise, I think if you don't care that much about Delirium, or if you're not trying to get into the red zone, this isn't a card that I'm, crazy in love with and want to play in every deck ever. So, moving on to Wild Field Scarecrow, a 3 generic mana, uncommon 1/4 with Defender. 2 mana, sacrifice Wild Field Scarecrow, search your library for up to 2 basic lands, reveal them, and put them into your hand, then shuffle your library. Once again, this one is 2 different card types for Delirium, and you can sacrifice it on demand. It's already a 1/4, so it's going to be able to block really well. It's able to fix all of your mana, particularly in Sealed, when you want to splash all your sweet bombs. This guy is fantastic.
Yeah, I feel like this is going to be a decent card in limited.
This card seems great in limited. It does kind of everything you want it to do. Obviously, it's not going to be as good in draft when like your curve matters and you're really trying to get a lot of synergy. But in sealed, this thing is an all-star.
Yeah.
That card is great. Drownyard Temple is next. It's a rare land that taps for a colorless mana. 3 generic mana, return it from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So anything that needs to sacrifice a land, such as the Git Frog monster, will want something like this so it can keep coming back, so you don't care about that type of upkeep. Does that matter in some way in terms of this card's playability?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that this card is going to see a lot of constructive play. It's already a three or four of in the blue red goggles deck that Todd has been playing a lot of. He probably wrote about it this week, and we played a versus video next week with it.
Why?
And it's playing in Tormenting Voice, Jace, Magmatic Insight. It's just a good card to have in these decks that want madness because it's an additional card that you can discard when you don't have a madness card. So
Oh my God.
you can Lightning Axe, discard Drowned Temple on turn three, play it, or turn four. On turn four, you can just say go Lightning Axe, bring back Drowned Temple, play Chandra. So
Wow.
like it's really tough for them to see these effects. So I feel like this card's gonna be very good in blue red.
This card
Also,
is
just
secretly one of the best cards in the set. Am I wrong here?
no, you're not. This card is very good.
Wow, this card is incredibly impressive. I mean, you don't. It only takes a few of those interactions before you go, "Holy crap!"
There's four different cards in one deck that's Toddson playing that interact favorably with Drowned Temple.
Oh my God, this
Or
card is
five?
well.
Like four or five.
This is one of those cards that like it looks powerful, but you don't really know why. But as soon as you put a few pieces together, you go like, "My God, this thing's amazing!"
Yeah, this card has been quite impressive so far, and that's just the scratching the surface. This card is going to see play in a lot of different decks.
Wow. All right. So Drown Yard Temple, man. I tell you what, they've pumped the lands full of power in this set.
Yeah.
For sure. Warped Landscape is next. It's a common land. It's a fixer. It taps for a colorless mana or two generic mana. Tap sack. Search your library for a basic land card and put it onto the battlefield tapped. So it kind of rampant growths if you want it to be, or it taps for a colorless mana immediately.
Well, it doesn't rampant growth.
Well, I mean, no, not. I mean, well, for two mana, it goes and finds a basic land card and puts it in play tapped. Like,
Yeah, it's just another variant of Evolving Wild, which
right.
is unique. It's probably better when you're trying to play a two-color deck with Eldrazi or something.
Sure.
And in this set, I guess they just didn't want Evolving Wilds. I wish they just, of course they have to be serious about it and call it Warped Landscape, but I really just wanted them to call it Evolved Wilds.
Ha. Saw what you did there. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah. I mean, I agree. I agree. It's obviously not rampant growth in that. Like, it's not accelerating you. It's just like I see two mana, go find a land, put it in play tapped, whatever.
Yeah.
But ultimately,
But
like, it's good and limited because it not only taps for mana, it can fix your mana, of course. And that's never really a bad thing.
yeah, but it's at the cost, and I think the reason that they wanted it not to just be Evolving Wilds could be just because we're getting bored of having that in every set, but also they didn't want getting a land into the graveyard to be that easy.
Right.
Like they wanted it to come at a cost.
Right. All right, buddy. We're down to our last two sets of cards.
Two cycles, so we just have to say like one of them and tell them what they do, and then we're done, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Forsaken Sanctuary is the new cycle. Forsaken Sanctuary, Foul Orchard, Highland Lake, Stone Quarry, and Woodland Stream are the new come into play tap lands that originally showed up in Invasion, but those talked about specific places. So now we have like, the weird, like sort of really, really generic ways to explain what a dual land's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And ultimately, they're decent fixers. May even see some constructed play because a dual land's a dual land. If you don't care about them coming into play tapped, then you can wait on it, but probably not. But of course, it depends on the mana and the format, yada, yada, yada.
Certain decks you'll see these cards being played in. Like I don't think like for example like the green ones you're not going to see played because those are the decks that are going to be playing the cards like Oath of Nissa and Traverse the Ulvenwald.
Sure.
But like the black white ones or the blue red ones, I think you are going to see play because those are the decks that have like intense mana requirements on a lot of their spells because the best black cards, the best white card usually cost double of those.
Sure.
And Highland Lake, you want your mana to be really good in a blue red deck, and also like they're going to be looting, so you can get rid of them later in the game. So I think those are going to see a lot more play, in the black red one potentially, but the two green ones will probably not.
Right. Well, now they officially have renamed all 10 of the comes into play tap lands strictly worse than gates because you can't go win the game with, the one card that helps you win the gates. I can't remember right now. The maze, right? Whatever.
Dragon's Maze, yeah.
Dragon's Maze, yeah. So either way, that's a cycle. It's good. It's playable, obviously, and limited. If you're those two colors, you're going to play these lands not close. And if you're not, you don't. Now we get to the rare cycle. What they call them is the Shadowlands, which I think is so lame.
Why Shadowlands lame?
I just thought it's just boring. It's just like I thought Handlands were cool because it rhymes. It was
Well,
neat.
hand. So there are a lot of things about Magic that I think should be cooler, and one of them is deck names.
Okay,
I don't like black white mid range, red green landfall, Antarka Eldrazi ramp or whatever.
sure.
I don't like these names. But when it comes to lands, I really do like that if every set is going to have a new cycle, they should just be based off that set. Because like if we had to remember handlands and buddy lands and whatever you wanted to call the battle lands beforehand,
Tango Lands.
Tango
What?
lands, like if we
Yeah.
were like how many Tango lands you playing, I don't know how many hand lands you playing. Like I just would rather them be referred to the set because it's more of a like when we discuss these things, we're discussing the nuts and bolts of Magic, as opposed to when it comes to a deck name. I want to call my decks Hoof There It Is and it to stick and people to say those names because that you can remember that. Like people are like, remember Hoof There It Is? That's great. Or remember Act Two? That's great. No one comes up to me and is like, do you remember Black White Mid Range Seven?
Look, Wizards. Well, first of all, it's funny because I literally think the exact opposite. But in some ways, I agree with you. Like, for example, I'm glad that the Scars lands are the Scars lands, right? I know what those do. I've connected that in my brain. High five. However, for deck names, when stuff gets real like silly and ridiculous, and it's Fruity Pebbles and it's Hoof There It Is, no one has any idea what these decks are doing, what colors they have, or how they operate. What the hell is a full English breakfast? It's ridiculous. But
Yeah, but there's a learning curve, and
it's
when it
an
comes to
unnecessary learning curve. You're making
no,
it
Magic
worse.
has no, it isn't. Magic has a learning curve.
Everything has a learning curve.
Yes, but like people are going to explore. Like none of us are like, man, I don't that deck name is weird. I don't feel like looking into it. But I can guarantee there are people that when they just see black white mid range, they're not going to look at the deck list because it's black white mid range does not define a specific deck. It's like 8 different types of black white mid range decks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, like, when you have when you try to like let that when you try to open the door just a little bit to those types of things, like everybody and their mama's got to name their deck something different. It's not like everybody agrees on Hoof There It Is. It's that one small section says Hoof There It Is, and another small section calls it something totally different, and another small section names it after their friend or their little like in joke because they really get it and they think it's a cool, super cool, cute thing. And then you have 4 of the same deck named 4 different things. I'm not kidding because I know I dealt with this back when I was trying to like when I was managing coverage of SCG Live. That's a thing that happens. People come up with the weirdest, craziest name for their deck, and you can't just be like, okay, whatever, you know. We're gonna call it
No, I
like
agree.
Broken Toaster because
I
like you
agree
really
there's
enjoyed like what it does.
I agree there's a limitation, and we can save this for another day since it's 1 in the morning.
Fine.
But I do believe that there is a middle ground that should be reached, and we are on the wrong side of it.
All right, so can we just say that these lands are very good and they're going to see a lot of play in standard and they should be played
Yes,
unlimited because they're great?
Yeah, so far what I can say about these lands is they're very good in 2-color decks, but the 3-color mana bases are not supporting them that well. And so, yes, play 4 of these, play 4 of their corresponding battle lands, and the mana bases have felt really good. They don't feel as great as before, but that's because we're spoiled.
Sure, and the battle lands allow you to have a basic land type, so these do come into play untapped. So that's a
Yeah.
good thing, which is really sweet. And ultimately, just to kind of say it out loud here, you have Choked Estuary, which is black-blue. You have Foreboding Ruins, which is red-black. You have Fortified Village, which is green-white. You have Game Trail, which is red-green. Game. And Port Town, which is white and blue. And when they enter the battlefield, you may reveal a basic land type of the colors by which they produce. And if you don't, they enter the battlefield tapped. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of our Shadows over Innistrad complete live set review. Well,
We're
man,
done.
dude. You know what, guys? I just want to say thank you. I have never personally had a stream with this many people on it. Certainly for this extended amount of time. I had a great time doing it. Brad, as usual, you're fantastic. Thank you very much for joining me.
You're very welcome.
I know I ask a lot out of you, buddy.
No, it was fun. I mean, my ass hurts. I'm tired.
My ass hurts and I'm tired.
Yeah,
Brad
but I
Nelson.
did it for you.
Yeah, you did, because you know I love you, buddy, and I love all our viewers. All you people are great. You're terrific. Thank you very much for watching. You guys join us here. Brad, we in for Eldritch Moon?
Obviously, I guess.
No pressure. I'm just asking
Why
in front
ask
of a
me at the
thousand
end of
people.
this one?
Oh yeah, I'm just asking in front of 1,000 people, Brad, because that's how I do.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing. You guys are awesome. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, I am Evan Irwin.
Brad Nelson.
We tapped every single card.
So you didn't have to.
That's right. Good night, everybody. Thank you very much for watching.
Sleep tight. Don't let the Innistrad bed bugs bite.
Especially not that weird red one, which is really scary. Bye, guys.